Good afternoon, friends. Can you hear me? Okay. This is the only PowerPoint I have. So I'm going to shut it after this. So in case somebody wants to note down my email ID, it's up there. My Twitter handle is there. I have already tweeted out about this meeting. So with this, I'm going to shut my PowerPoint off, and you will probably see it once more at the end. Can you please close it down for me? I'm so happy to be at NCBS. Very rarely, can you have the lights, please? I'm also like Satyajit Rath. I don't like darkness. Let there be light. We don't need this PowerPoint. We have to talk to each other. We are talking of communication. Communication happens when we have eye contact. I can't show you my, whatever, the worst side and do a PowerPoint. I'm so happy to be at NCBS. It's a wonderful place. I have admired this place for a long time. I admire it for its research work. I admire this place for the kind of communication activity they do, for the outreach they do. To be present among so many young, wonderful minds, all upcoming, wanting to be in the powerhouse of Indian science and technology is a wonderful experience for me. I am a communicator. I do print, which is through the Science magazine, for whom I have been a correspondent for 20 years, 1994 onwards, unbroken. I do television with NDTV as their science editor, communicating both in English and Hindi. And believe me, the Hindi audience is amazingly vast and far more wise than the English audience. And I can say that with some experience. I do photography. I'm a still photographer. The camera is being held by Shubhra, but I don't carry a camera around. But yes, I'm a photographer. I work with Corbis, which is one of the largest agencies of the world. Now, to give you a little idea, the foundation for which was laid by many, many speakers, including the last one, who said he interviewed 100 people and didn't find one who can write well. So my talk is about two parts. One is an alternative career, or I should say a career, because for me that's not an alternative, it's my career. That's my bread and butter, my passion, my life. My children live on that, which is being a science communicator. The other is of how scientists need to communicate. I would dwell a little bit of time on both. Let me start off by saying how I came into science journalism. And I distinguish between science journalism and science communication. You also heard the phrase science promotion. All wonderful things. Each one can do different things. As scientists today, I personally think each one of you should be excellent communicators. If you need to grab Shahid Jamil's attention to get your grant, you need to know how to write that one page. That one page is needed by everybody, and one page doesn't come easy. Believe me, communication is a core skill, a core skill. Unfortunately, our own universities, graduate schools don't teach people about communication. I am not neither a trained television person nor a trained journalist. I learned it on the job. It was through passion. Several decades ago, like you, I was at a crossroad. And not far from here, I was at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, where I had joined for a PhD. I was not wanting to give this story out, but then many people have spoken about their life, so I'm giving you that. 86, I was at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. In the second batch of the Center for Ecological Sciences, they took in 3 students that year. I was one of them, to join for a PhD, to work with Madhav Gadgil and Raman Sukumar, the Elephant Man, and today the Western Ghats report man, Madhav Gadgil. He's better known today for that. I quit that within a year. So whether that was an alternative career choice, I do not know. I was always a writer when I was doing my graduation. We did a very big report called on the investigation on the Narmada River, called The Death of a River. 30 years later, that report is still considered landmark. Ram Guha wrote about it this year, saying it changed the paradigm of discourse on development in India. So that was in college days. I didn't have a clue what journalism was, what breaking news was, but we still did what was called student researcher days. I quit my PhD program. I continued my photography, continued my writing. For several years I did that, and then came along the opportunity to work with the Science magazine. They didn't have a correspondent in India. Our nearest competitor is Nature. Shubhra is there. Nature had a correspondent in India for a long, long time, the veteran K.S. Jayaraman.
Still is the person.
Yes. K.S. Jayaraman, and Science didn't have. They found an opportunity. They put me in, and I was there with them since 20 years, and I continue to be in that position. 7 years ago, I was pulled into NDTV, literally pulled in. NDTV is a brand in itself, and they needed somebody to look at science, and they chased me down. It is very difficult at age 44, 45, to join a television room newsroom. The average age in the newsroom was 22. The only other person who was senior to me was Pranoy Roy. I was like a grandfather in that room. I still look like a grandfather. I am still mid-career, but that's a separate story. I joined television without any training in television. So NDTV said, you have the story. We have the experience in television. You get the story, we'll get it into television. Over time now I have learned the art of putting stories in televised modes. Some of you may have seen our coverage on the Indo-US civilian nuclear deal. We covered extensively. You are funded by the Department of Atomic Energy. We also covered the space program in a big way, but we also cover biology in a fairly big way. In fact, just last week the story I did was on the deciphering of the wheat genome. I'm spending a lot of time in Bangalore, so I traveled all the way from Bangalore to Ludhiana to the Punjab Agriculture University to look at the lab where they were doing it. Before that, we did the protein map from Bangalore, which emerged from here. So there is ample opportunity for people to communicate. Now the bar has come down. You don't need intermediaries like me or Shubhra or somebody from the Hindu to do stories for you. Scientists should be able to communicate on their own. The internet offers a wonderful opportunity. You have Twitter, you have Facebook, you have LinkedIn, WhatsApp, my God. For some reason, the medical community is hooked to WhatsApp. Patients, doctors, all the community, all of them are hooked onto WhatsApp. Blogs, YouTube, these are wonderful ways. And today, scientists can communicate directly. They don't need people like me to come in the way or be their hand holders in communication. And I always urge scientists, please do it on your own. It's very, very, very simple. It's no longer the complex way of going through the route of going to a journalist, going to an editor, and not finding your story. You can put your own stories out yourself. A simple iPhone can act as a wonderful video camera, and you can put your own video blog out. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes. Don't get into fancy stuff, but simple stuff. Get it out there. It's not hard at all. I practice journalism. And communication and journalism are very different. If you want to be a journalist, you need to have the passion in you. You need to have the fire in the belly. You need to know how to give trouble to Dr. Vijay Raghavan. I'm sure many of you would be familiar here with him. To give trouble to the science minister, to dig up dirt from which most people don't want to show. That is the job of a journalist, is to pull out stuff which should be in the public domain and which is not in the public domain for different reasons. If you're not cut out for this very passionate act, then don't be a journalist. Don't look at journalism at all. Every day you are at a crossroad between PhD and postdoc to a career. Every day I am on the crossroad. When I put a story out, I am not sure how it will be received. I always say, I am on the crossroad, my story is out, and anybody can pelt a stone. And that happens very often. Last week, when the budget was released, we went out on a limb and said that your parent department, which is the Department of Atomic Energy, for the first time in many years, has lost money. Minus 3.3% is the budget of the Department of Atomic Energy. I do not know how NCBS would be affected, but most other people decided to say that DAE got a huge increase in budget, but my reading was that they had lost money. We put that story out, and I was sure I will get some brickbats. But if your facts are right, your skin is thick, and you have the passion in you, believe me, journalism is an incredibly fulfilling profession. It gives you the enormous reach to get messages out. I'm a reporter. I don't editorialize things in a way, but when you make choices, you make those choices. But as communicators, each one of you should be communicating in a very, very, very intense manner. So many people, many of the industry people also said, I heard somebody say that people don't know how to write emails. Bizarre. I find young people coming in and writing emails and messages to me in SMS language. So Indian becomes Indian, and all kinds of short forms. They don't work. They don't work at all. So writing is a core skill, communication is a core skill. So everybody of you needs to communicate and learn how to communicate. None of us are born with that skill. We are born with the art of talking, and as Indians, we are very argumentative, so we communicate. But when it comes down to our profession, not many people communicate. How many of you use Twitter to communicate your scientific results? Can I have hands up? That's a large number of people, I must say. Exactly zero. How many of you use Facebook to communicate your findings, your results, your excitement, and not just pictures from hikes? One hand up. Lovely. 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, wow, wow. I'm happy. This is larger than the number I have in talks I have given in other places. Please use these modern tools. They are incredibly powerful ways of communicating and reaching out to larger audiences. That is the plain and simple message I want to give you. And this is your now opportunity to turn the tables on a journalist and ask questions. So ask the toughest questions you feel like. Normally it is my job to ask questions to people, but now it is your opportunity. You can feel free to ask me anything of something you liked about my work, something you didn't like about my work.
How important do you think a science journalist is to somebody in science policy, in our country at least?
Well, I would think, as a person, I'm just a messenger. But many science people who make science policy would never read Science and Nature, or PNAS, or Cell, or JBC. What they would is surely read the morning newspaper or look at the evening bulletin. And across disciplines, a lot of information flows among scientists themselves through the news networks. So at some point, people who have communicated the results and have given sufficient outreach of their work end up getting much better grants than people who live in silos and hide behind bell jars. I always tell people, scientists, and all of you are starting off, please feel free. My email ID was there exactly for that purpose. Next time your paper is accepted for publication, that is the time you need to reach me. Don't reach me saying my paper was published in June and I'm reaching you now. I have very little need for that. That your paper is accepted, waiting to be published, that is the time you come to me and say this is our result. The Wheat Genome Project, I can say that now openly. The researchers in the Punjab Agriculture University reached me 3 months ago. 3 months ago, I had the full paper sitting on my table. Before it was accepted in Science, I had the full paper sitting in my table. And not because I'm a correspondent of Science, but because they wanted intense coverage on that particular aspect. And television coverage happens when I am there. If you folks have the energy, I have one little story I'll show you, otherwise it doesn't matter. But television is a here and now medium. So I have to be with the researcher in the lab. That is the way stories get told. So reach me when your paper is accepted. And I have no reason to break any embargoes. In 30 years of writing and journalism, I have never had to break any embargo. Yes?
Yeah. So,
since morning, I've heard about that you need to be smart, you need to have your communication skills and everything to be presentable at the interviews. So may I please know what are the ways to enhance your communication and all these skills? And also, is there any sort of any course that can make you presentable at the interviews? Because I'm a novice, and being a novice, how to present oneself at the interviews is a major question. I just want to know, is there any institute or any course that prepares you for that?
Well, there are some courses which teach you journalism and some courses which teach you communication. I do not know how to give an interview. I always take interviews, so I do not know how to do that. No, and I have never given a formal job interview in my life, so I do not know about that. But I'm sure there are places which can offer. But at the same time, as I said, I'm increasingly spending an enormous amount of time in institutions talking to scientists on the need for them to communicate. Today, scientists are being boxed in. See what happened on the genetic modification. B.T. Brinjal. Some people talked about reaching out. What did Jairam Ramesh do? He held town hall meetings. He held public discourses. How many scientists went for it? I attended some. Almost none. What is the final outcome? Genetic modification has lost many years of research work. Many researchers are not wanting to join that field because you don't see a future there. Scientists need to engage with the public. Public engagement is a very, very important part. Please find 10% of your time from your lab, engage with people. Believe me, it will refine your own ideas. It will not just refine, it will help others, but your own research work will get refined more and more. So there are many institutions where they can teach you journalism and communication. And NCBS itself runs a course on science writing. I'm told it's already on or it's going to be running. I'm coming back hopefully for that to talk about, more specifically about television journalism there. At the National Institute of Advanced Studies, where I'm spending some time, NIAS, as a visiting professor of science communication, we are engaging more and more with institutions trying to tell them why there is need for communication. The disaster you have seen with genetic modification, the disasters we have seen with Kudankulam, my God, why should they happen? Everybody needs to be engaged. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, recently, actually, I'm from IISc, and the recent reports of research in IISc have been coming out in newspapers like Deccan Herald and Mumbai Mirror, and many of them are largely exaggerated. So it's actually more sensationalized than being true. For example, there was a story saying IISc detects comes up with a method to detect explosives in any container, with the any container highlighted in bold, but that wasn't actually the case. So where do journalists draw the line between sense and sensationalism while reporting science to a layman?
Well, at least we can say for ourselves, we don't sensationalize. Yes, I was aware of that paper in Nature Communication which came out talking about the detection of explosives within a bottle. Essentially, it's about how you and I face problems when we go to airports. You have to pull out every liquid you have, put them in, and if they can't find, they'll empty it out and throw it away. So this is a new detection method using Raman spectroscopy, not far from here, perfected mostly in the West, now coming back to Bangalore. It's a fantastic story if you ask me, but minor exaggerations, please bear with it. Sometimes researchers themselves exaggerate, sometimes the journalist exaggerates, occasionally it's the desk when they put the headline out, puts a little twist to it. So there are many ways it happens, but as long as the message is 99% correct, don't complain. I'll tell you a true story. I was reporting about a particular health event, and India's health minister at that time was one Dr. Thakur. He saw a big front page story on health. He looked at, oh wow, what a beautiful story. The headline was wrong, saying some disease going awry, increasing, but it had a beautiful picture of him. That's all. He didn't care anything more. He saw his own picture there in big print. He was very happy about it. So bear with a little bit of. And if things go wrong, there are ways of correcting. You can always write a letter to reach the journalist if something has gone wrong. That's the first level. Second, you can write a letter to the editor. If you are still very peeved, you can go to the Press Council of India. And today we have a wonderful man called Markandeya Katju, of whom all of you must have heard since his expose about the judges. He exposes many things. One of them was very recently on the judges. If you're even more peeved, you can go to the court with a libel and defamation case. So there are many ways. Best, first instance, if I have gone wrong, call and tell me. No journalist, no communicator ever wants to get something wrong. That sticks very badly. If you guys want to be rich, don't join journalism. Okay? You will be very rich in your heart. You'll have many enemies. You will not have friends. Because as a journalist, almost everybody I work with, my sources never become friends. Once a source is my friend, I stop writing. Somebody approached me saying, of this meeting, can I write about? I said, no. I'm participating in a meeting, I cannot write about it. It's a complete conflict of interest. My editors would never permit me to write about a meeting where I am speaking personally. So there are very strong boundaries which we set for ourselves. So enjoy, communicate, please go out, get onto Twitter. Everybody of you should have a Twitter handle. Today, when people join for a PhD at NCBS, each one should have an @NCBS with that name, a Twitter handle. Start tweeting. Even the government wants to do it. And somebody was talking about the general mood in the country. Let me just spend another minute on that. The mood after the new government has come, especially for science and technology, believe me, is very upbeat. What did Mr. Modi do in the first 30 days of his government? He spent a whole evening, a whole night, and an entire morning. Where? Yes, at the ISRO Sriharikota Satellite Launch Center. What did he do on Monday? Come on, guys. What did he do on Monday? Come on, come on, come on. Please, are you not reading the newspaper? He went to your parent department at the Department of Atomic Energy. He spent a whole afternoon at the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Whole afternoon, from 2 o'clock till 6:20. No lunch, no tea. What is he doing on Tuesday? Coming Tuesday. He's spending an entire morning with the agriculture scientists. He is amazingly logged in with the scientific community. Who was the first half a dozen people he met in his own office by invitation when he became Prime Minister? No. He met CNR Rao. The first half a dozen people he met was CNR Rao. Most departments have lost money in this budget.
Every funding agency person he met on the first day.
That was a very minor. That was the science minister. That was the science minister, man. I can correct you on that because I was there for it. It was the science minister. And the science minister today is a person who is a scientist, a trained scientist. He's a diabetologist who was a professor at the University of Jammu. He has half a dozen books, including some with Elsevier. He has several research publications to his credit. He understands science. So you guys should be upbeat. अच्छे दिन आ गए हैं जिसको कहते हैं वो. अब वो पॉलिटिकली अच्छे दिन होंगे कि नहीं वो सब मैं नहीं जानता, लेकिन हाँ साइंटिस्ट के लिए बुरे दिन नहीं हैं. साहब ने भी यही कहा था.